Jordan Brennan here with ESPN The Magazine. He wrote the piece on Sam Hinkie. He says, the man who just can't win. Hinkie finally speaks. Jordan Brenner here on the Bash 97.3 ESPN. Jordan, welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me.
You got it. Obviously, he is a guy that is very polarizing, even in his unemployment, right? He's a guy that probably this piece got a ton of reaction for a man who has no job.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I didn't almost anticipate the level of interest, but you're right. This guy, in his tenure with Philly, really was polarizing. You know, lots of strong opinions on both sides of the issue, and people have really sort of latched onto this as another chance to talk about the pros and cons of what he did.
What'd you learn about him? Let's first off, can you set the time frame for our listeners of when you sat? It's not like you sat down with him at the draft or right after the draft to get his reaction. You know, hey, they got Ben Simmons. What do you think? I think everybody was wanting to hear what that reaction would be. But you spoke to him pre-draft, correct?
Yeah, pre-resignation.
Oh, wow, okay.
Sam has not spoken to anyone since he resigned. He has gone dark, so to speak. So I was actually doing a different story altogether. You know, Sam didn't give access for anything, really. Guy pretty much never really spoke on the record. But I was really intrigued by what I saw coming as sort of a next phase of this process this summer, just with the amount of talent they had coming in, potential number one pick. At the time, obviously, we didn't know that they would indeed get it in the lottery, and then it looked like they were ready to start spending in free agency and start focusing on things like fit. So we went. The idea was to do a story on how he evaluates players, sort of take the basketball end of things, since he's so usually talked about as an analytics guy. So we went and scouted NCAA tournament games in Providence, and then we spent a day in Philadelphia watching film with him, and also to do a feature on that. And 8 days after I was in Philly with him, he resigned, and that changed everything.
What did you learn about Sam Hinkie, the man that maybe he is misunderstood about? As you mentioned, I think people look at him as this analytical guy who doesn't know anything about basketball, and his whole thing was just to rip something down, and that I thought he was unfairly judged for his talent evaluation, because people look at a team that didn't win a lot of games. That doesn't necessarily mean that he didn't find talent. What did you learn about him in talking to him?
Well, I think Sam's biggest mistake in his time as general manager was not taking more of an effort in trying to control the message. He believed that by explaining things, by being out there, it could possibly give away some sort of an advantage, that people could predict their next move from what he was saying, that there was just no reason to speak out. But what he didn't realize is in doing that, he made enemies of people who, unfortunately there are some in the media who react to not getting access and lash out at the person. So he made enemies on that side. He made enemies within the league, and it let people too easily distort what he was doing and control the message themselves. So when you get around Sam, the frustrating thing is that you see that he's actually very much not like he's portrayed. Easygoing, laughs quite a bit, self-deprecating, and that's what frustrated, I think, people around him who knew the real Sam Hinkie, and would suggest, you've got to let people see that side of you. It's okay. You're a good guy. And so he's enjoyable to spend time with. And I think, if he had to do it all over again, he probably would have put himself out there earlier.
There's a part of the article, and did you speak with rival GMs around the league for this piece?
I did. I spoke to, players, GMs, agents, coaches, you name them. Over 15 sources, and you got a lot of opinions from people who've dealt with him on all sorts of things.
I got a sense from Jordan, from reading this, that some of the GMs that you had quoted in there almost felt like, I wish my ownership would let me do what Philadelphia did. Like they had some sort, not resentment, but they had this feeling of, man, I wish I had the ability to do what he's doing, because I would do it if my owner would let me.
Oh, I'll flat out call it jealousy. I had a couple general managers actually use that word, is that some of the criticism of him was motivated by the fact that at the time it appeared that they were exactly that they were operating without the usual pressures a GM faces. And most GMs can't spend this long tearing something down because they got to worry about their job. What it looked like was that Sam and ownership were on so much the same page that they were going to do this their way. And the reason why it bothered people is because they know it would work. There's really there are very few ways to acquire elite talent in the NBA, and elite talent wins games in the NBA more than any other sport. The best way to do it is through the draft. And basically, if you're bad long enough and get enough lottery picks, you're going to get good. But most people can't, again, have the length of time to do that, and I think it frustrated them.
Jordan Brennan's with us here, and Jordan Brenner wrote the piece at ESPN, the magazine, on Sam Hinkie. The part about Elton Brand, was that surprising to you? I mean, was that something that, was your perception that, okay, this is an organization, this guy kind of doing everything under the radar, he's kind of doing things his own way. When you heard the stuff that Brand had to say, was that something that was eye-opening to, wow, this guy is on to something here?
Well, not necessarily. I think what Elton's quotes talking about sort of, and for people who haven't read the piece, Elton sort of talks about coming into Philly and expecting it to be, players running amok, no player development. He found just the opposite. I think it's because you heard a lot around the league, well, players don't want to come there, players don't like them. And there are some players who really are anti-everything that was going on in Philly, and some of them influenced by their agents, because agents were probably the group most angry with Hinkie because, A, he wasn't spending, and B, he wasn't playing their games. But Elton came in and expecting to see it not functioning, instead saw the commitment they'd made to player development and the new practice facility coming and things of that nature, and he was pretty impressed in his time there.
You ever hear of somebody sticking the photo of a referee with his name over the John?
Well, my understanding is it's something actually they did in Houston. So Sam took that with him. It's kind of brilliant. What else are you doing in the bathroom there, right? You might as well study up on the referees' pictures, and of all the places, I think it might be appropriate.
Yeah, I want to go back to the GM stuff, because I find it, you said flat out jealousy. We look what just happened with Kevin Durant going to Golden State, and that's kind of just basically made 28 other franchises feel like they don't have a shot. Do you think that other GMs will try to talk their ownership group into doing this now? Do you think Sam Hinkie gets another job, or that others will follow suit?
Well, yes, I think Sam Hinkie will get another job at some point, but I think what's going to be the problem here is it's going to be harder for people to follow suit because of the actions the league took here, and the fact that the league influenced Philly's ownership in such a way that not only do they put a stop to this process, Sam lost his job. And there's a lot of people out there who I spoke to who feel like that was the league sending a message through Sam that, like, you better not try this. We're that concerned about tanking, and you will lose your job through the means we're going to take to make this stop. So,
what was his take on that? Did he feel that the league ultimately stepped in because of him?
I didn't speak to him after the resignation, so I can't speak to what he felt about that.
No, but at that time, because Colangelo was put in place by that time, right?
Right, but again, Sam still had his job, so he wasn't talking in any way about
So he wasn't speaking negatively on Colangelo, because there's many that feel that they put Colangelo in there basically to say, hey, look, the Sixers are beating us red-handed here. You need to make this look better.
Right, but again, Sam at that point was working with Jerry, so he was not going to speak out against him. Whatever he may or may not have felt, that just wouldn't have been appropriate for him to even on or off the record to say.
Any thoughts from him on, I've asked him on my show, because you're right, towards the end he was doing more media. He had come out, and I told Sam, I said, Sam, you're pretty good at this. You should do more of it. And he kind of laughed, but, as you said, he thought that getting information out there would mean that someone would get a leg up on him. Did he have any, because I asked him, did he have any regrets, or did he think that is there something that they've had bad luck on? And he just kind of mentioned that they had not got the number one pick, but he almost suggested that we would still take Embiid even if they had the number one pick, so that they wouldn't have even have really changed their course. Did he have any thoughts on the process up to the point when you spoke to him, on something that he would do differently?
We didn't talk that much. Again, you got to remember, the bulk of our story was talking about scouting and how you evaluate players. There was a decent amount of discussion about team building and what had led up to it, but Sam would inevitably steer it back to whatever game we were watching or things like that. I think Sam has an incredible appreciation of the role luck plays in any of this. So I don't think he's one to necessarily second guess himself about those things. Like I said, I think the bigger thing for him was realizing that it was the controlling of the message, rather than maybe I would have taken this guy or that guy instead of this guy or that guy. I think he felt they had a pretty sound strategy. They were clearly taking the best player available in each case, and for him, it's really he's clear cut about it's the pursuit of a star. He talked to me about He talks a lot about James Harden when they got him in Houston, and he talks a lot about when they lost Yao Ming in Houston and how to get from 0 to 1 star, and it was so important. It consumed him at the time, and I think it was that same philosophy that guided him in Philly.
One part of the story, by the way, it's a great story. Go to ESPN.com. If you click on the Sixers section, you'll be able to find Jordan Brenner's story on Sam Hinkie. One Western Conference GM talks about when he made trades that he did stuff, he always won the trade. Did it get to a point where people were afraid to deal with Sam because they almost viewed him as smarter than them?
No, I don't think they viewed him as smarter, and I don't think they were afraid, but they were annoyed. I think they looked at Sam, like I said in the piece, they said Sam would always try to extract as much blood as possible in the trades. It wasn't just about winning. He would go for the kill. And the problem is you have to deal with these people all over again. So what we're talking about is not conventional trades, but those situations where, say, a guy's looking to dump a contract so he can get a free agent, and Philly was sort of the repository for that because they always had cap room. So Sam would take on that guy, but it was at his price. It wouldn't just be it wouldn't be 1 second round pick. It would be 2, or it would be 2 and a player. And I think that guys who had other GMs who had no other way to turn just found it all right. Yeah, Sam, you're holding our hands to the fire in this case, but when I have a choice now, I don't want to deal with you again. Now, we never really saw that come to fruition because the fact is they made more transactions than anybody in his time there, but that's something that GMs would say, is that they didn't like dealing with them because of that sort of viewpoint.
I think, and I think this is your viewpoint in the article, Jordan, that gross incompetence is accepted in the NBA. Strategic gaming of a flawed system was frowned upon. And did Sam indicate at all that he was, frustrated with where they were? Or did he seem like at that time, hey, I'm evaluating players, and this is going to be 3 years down the road, you're going to be talking to me about a team that's an NBA champion?
Well, I don't think he would ever say something so bold, but I think he felt good about where they were in the build. I think they, like I said, he was excited about the talent coming in. He's excited about Embiid finally being healthy, and Okafor and Noel and Dario Saric coming in. And again, whomever I think he probably would have chosen Ben Simmons number 1, just like Brian Colangelo did. And suddenly you're looking at a bunch of first-round picks there, and the ability, as I said, in free agency to start to support them with a competent point guard and some veterans. And I think it could have been this part of the build could have happened very quickly. It wouldn't just be like we're going from 10 to 20 and 20 to 30 wins. You could have seen 10 to 35, something like that.
I think you mentioned in the story, too, about you're at Providence and him talking about the placement of a thumb and cupping of the hand. And I guess it kind of shows that this guy was more than just a stat geek. Well,
it's ridiculous that anyone thought there are 30 professional basketball teams that owners would hire someone who didn't know basketball. It's just moronic. Like, I honestly don't know what to say to those people who would believe that, other than like, what other bizarre conspiracies do you sleep in a tinfoil hat? It's ridiculous. So yeah, he's not a basketball guy in the way people who played the game call basketball guys, but he's been around the game his whole life. He played high school basketball. This is what he's done for a living. He watches film the same way anyone else does. So it's like, if you're saying he's not a basketball guy, what essentially you're saying is, unless you played, there's no way you can develop the knowledge necessary, which is ridiculous, because anyone can go to a game, learn what to watch for, and become a scout. So why couldn't those skills translate to being a general manager?
What do you think he's doing today?
I hope he's just enjoying life and kicking back and taking maybe a little vacation. You don't get much rest when you're a general manager. So I think he's probably, relaxing a little bit and figuring out what's next. And I think there will be definitely a next act for him. I'm just not sure in what capacity right away and where.
It's funny that I would ask you a question like this, but we don't know him that much. You got the most access to him, it seems like, than anyone. What's he like to eat?
Oh, well, apparently my wife said to me her favorite part of the story was that it was the emphasis on Mexican food. But it's funny. I didn't realize this until I was writing the story. But I started out with we're sitting at Taco Bell in a food court in Providence because we had sort of raced from the first session, the first two games of the day, and you've got about an hour before the night session begins, and it's raining. It's St. Patrick's Day, and all the restaurants are packed. So we end up in this food court, and then he told me this funny story about Daryl Morey when he started in Houston, taking him out to get queso, and Daryl pronounces it queso in front of the whole team, and just sort of embarrasses himself. So yeah, apparently Mexican food has played a very very important part in his life.
Have you tried to follow up with him at all?
Yeah, so we did. We got him. He had agreed to do a photo shoot for us before this all went down. So he sort of followed through on his promise, but he just declined to comment on anything that happened after the resignation. I'm not probably sorting stuff out. Who knows? But I think there were probably legit reasons why he wouldn't or couldn't talk at this point.
Great piece. If you're a anti-Hinkie guy like you, Billy, over there, if you're a Hinkie guy like myself, I don't love
pill for me to swallow.
Yeah,
Mike.
I don't love the losing. I understand why they did it. I don't like a team outwardly losing, but I understand it. And many people don't. Jordan, as you mentioned, I don't know that you thought that Sam would get so much attention, but in this area, it has been a 3-year lightning rod, and, well, congratulations on finding him. If you do find him, let us know.
I will. I appreciate the time, too, guys.